Welcome to the Evolve Podcast. I'm Joe Fitzpatrick, and today I have with me Taylor Bono. Taylor is an educator, a social worker, and she works a lot with kids on matters of inclusivity and making sure that they feel seen and recognized. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so cool to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about what you do in more specific terms?
I'm like blown away by your introduction because I've like captured so much of what I do. So I'm not technically a social worker, but I am definitely lumped in with educators. So the organization that I work for focuses on wraparound services for students and their families, primarily for students, but also for their families. And that can look a million different ways because everybody's needs are different, right? So we might focus on, at the middle school level, attendance, behavior, course completion, or like academics, and then social emotional learning is a huge one. And then all the other little things that kind of might shake out around those things. So if a student might need like someone to check in with them in the morning, that might fall under SEL, social emotional learning, but we're actually checking in about their math grade or something, you know what I'm saying? So there might be some combination of things that we do. And then we do supports for the school in a really general sense. So we do tier 1 or school-wide events like parties and other things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you work along with like the guidance counselors as well as the teachers on more like specific areas of interest for the students.
Totally.
Just to like help with their engagement. That's
Pretty
really
much,
cool.
yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
This is my 4th year. So once October or the next school year starts, it'll be like the start of my 5th year, which is like the longest I've ever had one job. The same
Yeah,
job.
especially for like millennials these days, right? Like it's pretty uncommon to stay with a job for that long. You know, I've been with my current job with Capital One for over 5 years.
Yeah.
They're a great company to work with. I'm still trying to find like my quote unquote forever job because I'm, not doing what I'm actually passionate about in that job, which is part of why I'm doing this podcast to help me get to that point. Let's go back. So how did you end up coming into this role? Did you go to school for this?
No. So let's see if we go back. I needed a job when I was like 24, like whatever my parents' insurance cut off, you know what I mean? I was like 24 or 25 or 26, wherever that falls. And I really needed a full-time job that had benefits. And at the time, I had been living in Richmond for like a year or so, or a little bit less than a year. And when I went to college, I studied environmental science and Spanish. I got a double major in both of those, and hadn't really been doing much specifically with either one. I had more focused on environmental science and blah, blah, blah. So I came down to Richmond and I had some really awesome like service industry jobs. I worked at a bakery for a little while. I worked at the Valentine Museum. I worked at Swim RVA, if you're familiar with that place.
Yeah.
And it just kind of popped onto my radar that Richmond Public Schools is a thing, and that so I looked up on their job board what they might have available, although I wasn't interested in being a teacher. So I found a position that required Spanish language, and it was like a front office associate or something, but the title was bilingual parent liaison, and I was like, well, I can talk to adults, like I can speak Spanish, like this is great. Why don't I try that? So I started with RPS, and while I was at the elementary school doing that job, I met someone who was an employee at the time of Communities in Schools, which is my current place.
Okay.
And after a year of working there, she was like, do you want to try this out?
She checked out your vibe and she's like, maybe she would be into this.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, it's funny how like, life, in life we connect the dots to different opportunities, and that's really cool with it. Someone actually approached you about that, know, and it sounds like based on, what I know about you, it's definitely a good fit. Would you agree?
I agree, yes. I think it's a really good fit, at least for right now. I mean, for the 4 years that I've been doing it, it's been a really great challenge professionally and personally. And like I say, everybody that I talk to about this, I say that. I'm like, it's like such a good challenge professionally. I'm still learning things, which is great. Like after 4 years, I don't feel like I'm like, oh yeah, I know everything, I'm good. And then personally, there are challenges that come up all the time that I'm like, this is important, and I get to focus on this and get paid for it. Like I'm working on some really important personal shit while I'm also in a professional capacity, and that's really cool.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know you're dealing with children and their parents a lot, and that can be difficult to navigate, not to mention the politics of school boards and everything. And I know you deal with a lot of kids who are, non-binary, maybe even transitioning, or, starting to think about that kind of thing. Like, what are the grades that you work with?
I've been working with 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay.
Primarily.
So a little bit more mature, definitely more in sense with like who they are as a person.
Totally. Yeah. Definitely. That's like when you're trying to figure out who you are, right? Or like you're trying on all these different aspects and like characteristics and stuff. And so it's like not uncommon to know a student as a 6th grader and they're completely different when they're an 8th grader.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like think about when you were in
middle school, exactly. I was just trying to think like, definitely a bit awkward, but really coming into my own, starting to form some identities that are still relevant to me today, in terms of like the type of music that I identified with and the clothes that I like to wear. And, I know it's the same for all kids really. You just start to really have a better sense of self, get a bit more angsty,
totally,
rebelling against your parents, or like, finding the values that you share with them even more as well as you mature. Yeah. So let's go back a little further, talking about like your childhood. Like I know you have a few sisters, right? Yeah. And are your parents, are they both bilingual as well?
No, actually. So my mom is Filipino. And she understands Tagalog, but she doesn't speak it because her parents, my grandparents, are from different islands in the Philippines, so they actually only spoke English in the house. And there's no Spanish there. My grandmother thinks that she speaks Spanish because there's so much overlap in Tagalog. In Visaya, which is the dialect that she speaks. I think I'm saying that correctly. And then my dad doesn't speak. He only speaks English. So I actually learned Spanish in school and from studying abroad. That's not like a family, like an inherited language that I have.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
cool. I didn't know that you were Filipino.
Yeah, Filipino and Italian.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends growing up who had family from the Philippines, or they came over themselves when they were younger. Yeah. Really great culture. Sometimes I would attend events at like the Filipino cultural events, and they would like make lumpia and pancit and like pandesal, and I like loved that type of food.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
They're a good time too. They love to dance and have parties and stuff. What were you like as a teenager? Like as you we're growing into those 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years.
So as a middle schooler for like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I attended an all-girls Catholic school.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay. I did too, actually. It wasn't all girls,
really?
but I did attend a Catholic school for middle school.
Yeah, it was in Bethesda, Maryland, and it gave me like the best education. Like that was something that my mom talked about really like openly. Yeah. Was that she was like, I don't really care how much it costs. I will provide you the best education that I can possibly afford. So that school was it. And my mom grew up as a woman of faith, so she wanted to impart that upon me. I was like very holy. I was like very religious for a little while.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting. And I'll also say that in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years, at that point, my parents had been divorced for a really long time. It was like the norm for me. I like didn't feel anything about it. I just was like, that's where my mom lives. That's where my dad lives. This is normal. So I spent a lot of weekends traveling between my parents' houses, like for years and years and years. And I would say in the middle school age is when it started to like bother me. Not because I was like, oh, my parents are divorced, like I'm sad about that.
Mm-hmm.
It bothered me because I'd be like, damn, I really want to go to like Ashley's birthday party. Like, why can't I go? And my dad would be like, this is your weekend with me. Like, you're coming to see me this weekend, so I'm sorry, but you can't go. And vice versa. You know, like I'd have to miss other things with my mom, or just whatever. Like,
did they live in different areas?
Yeah, for a while it was like between Virginia and Maryland, which isn't.
Oh wow. Yeah. So you were going to different schools too? No,
I was at the same school, which was like pretty challenging. Like I would be gone for like, I mean, if you add it all up, it was like I'd be gone for like less than 48 hours total, because I'd like leave late on a Friday and get home on a Sunday and have to get up and go to school the next day. So
yeah,
I mean, that for a while.
That's a hectic schedule for sure.
Yeah.
And I know, like, depending on where you're at, like Virginia and Maryland and DC, they're all pretty close to each other, you know, in the DMV, Northern Virginia area. Yeah. So was your dad like just over the border in like Fairfax or somewhere near there?
No, it was actually pretty far. There was actually a period of time, and I couldn't tell you like what years they were now, but there was a period of time where I would get on a plane and fly.
Oh wow.
Because it was just faster. Like it was just easier for my parents, especially because they were the ones that would drive. And we actually used to meet in Richmond. And really? I guess I forgot about that for a while because my parents were the one driving me.
You're like, what's Richmond?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what this is, because we'd be in like a Walmart parking lot to do the handoff, you know. So no, they were quite far. Like my dad is in the Tidewater area.
Okay.
And so like Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, you know. And then my mom was like kind of bopping around, but like Bethesda, Maryland, like past DC. At one point we were in like Boyd's and Gaithersburg. So like if you're familiar with Maryland, it's not just over the border. It's
in there. Gotcha. Yeah. What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated high school in 2010.
Okay. I graduated in 2006, so I'm a little bit older than you, but I was just thinking back, like hypothetically, if you went to Catholic school in Virginia Beach, we possibly could have gone to school together.
Wild.
Because I went to Catholic school for middle school and high school.
Okay.
St. Gregory's Middle School and Bishop Sullivan Catholic High School.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting time. I was more religious when I was in high school. I like got involved with my church youth group and went to some like youth conferences, some non-denominational stuff, some more Catholic stuff. And, you know, that was my thing for a while. Like that was my group. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't really have any friends in like my actual high school, so I found friends outside of school. Yeah,
that's cool. That's like a great way to find friends, you know, in a community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think prepared me well for life with like trying to connect more with other different types of people.
Definitely. That's really cool. I mean, this isn't the same, but I think that also my having to travel around a lot and my mom being in the military and we moved around a lot, that made it so that I got really good at talking to people and like getting to know people and being like the new one in the room or like the new one in the grade. Like, how do I make connections with people?
Growing up Catholic, that definitely plants some seeds in terms of, you know, belief systems and worldviews and politics to some degree, as far as, you know, what your parents believe. And, you know, as we grow and mature, we have to form our own ideas about what we believe, and eventually decided I didn't want to call myself Catholic anymore. I like basically when I was in college and I started partying more and like going to church became less of a priority. And then I just really started asking myself, do I really believe any of this? And you know, for a while it was no, but then I came back to it later in life. And now I, you know, think I would consider myself like spiritual in terms of like some like Buddhist principles, but more agnostic. What about you?
What a good question. One thing you said that I like immediately resonate with is definitely like I consider myself more spiritual now, and also with some Buddhist principles, because that's like one of the religions or like religious I guess I'll just say religions that I like have willingly wanted to study and learn more about, because the lessons or like stories or stuff surrounding Buddhism has immediately resonated with me way more than most of what I remember learning as a young Catholic person.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I was just in a mass, like a Catholic mass, because my grandfather passed away like 2.5 weeks ago. So I was, not last week, but the week before, it was a part of his funeral mass, and I hadn't been in a Catholic mass in so long, and part of it is super familiar, right? Like some of it is like, yep, okay, word of the Lord, like, you know, some of the words have changed, but the like pattern has mostly remained the same. And there were moments where I was like, if I didn't know what was going on here, like if I had not been briefed on this, if I had not participated in something like this before, this would be so fucking weird. Like this is so, like, shocking.
From an outsider's perspective,
yeah, definitely.
Totally.
So there's a lot that I learned in the Catholic Church, specifically in some of the Catholic teachings, that feel so bad, like they don't feel great, and they don't feel, I don't know, they don't resonate. They like don't feel like. We could probably have a whole other podcast about this.
So yes.
I'll just say that like there are certain aspects to like spirituality and like certainly Catholicism that I think are really beautiful, and I see the benefit in them when I watch like my grandmother mourn her partner who's just lost, who's just died, right? Or like when my uncle died in an accident a couple years ago, I saw how beneficial this like deep faith and like tradition and structure supported my family, and I was like, that's fucking beautiful. Wow, okay, like I have respect for that. That's really cool. What I have never had respect for, or like what caused me to lose some respect, was when my stepdad, who's like the best human, one of the best humans I've ever met, just for a bunch of different reasons, he attempted to go receive the Eucharist one time during Mass because my mom brought us all to church one day, and was like in front of everybody turned away. Like people were like, you are not a Catholic, you can't do this. Like, no, go sit down. Yeah. So he like received a blessing, and if you're familiar with Catholicism, you know what that's like, right? And I remember watching that as like a 17-year-old and being like, something is not right about that. Like, this is a person who's willingly looking to like receive the body of Christ, and he's being turned away. Like, is that what Jesus would have done? So, got a lot of thoughts and feelings on that, but
yeah, I hear you. Yeah. You know, it can definitely be seen as exclusionary, and I think some people would argue that, you know, that it is a sacrament, and you're supposed to acknowledge that you're receiving the body of Christ in somewhat literal and somewhat figurative terms. And, you know, that's hard for some people to wrap their heads around, for sure. Yeah. And they want to like try and preserve the sanctity of that, but it's also very exclusionary. Yeah. And you know, for something that can be seen as a symbolic gesture, like they could be a little bit more chill about it.
I agree.
Yeah. But I'm with you. You know, I definitely think, you know, the church is very exclusionary in some ways, mainly because of, you know, it's run by people, right? And people are inherently imperfect and flawed and sinful, or, you know, that's how the church would describe it. You know, we're broken in some ways, but, you know, in modern terms, you know, we don't have to be defined that way. And I think it's important to recognize that while, you know, everyone has imperfections, like that's okay, you know, and like that is what makes you a person. That's what makes you like beautiful, you know. That's what makes you who you are. You know, that's not something that's really like followed very well in the church.
I would agree. Yeah, I would definitely agree.
You know, everyone, they want everyone to be the same to maintain some level of order. In a sense, it is a lot about, you know, control.
Starting off from like a Christian or Catholic background, right? And what you're taught as a young person is that you're bad and you need to work to get good, like work towards your salvation and to be a good person. And and if you don't do those things, you're going to burn in eternal damnation. that really scared me as a young person, and that worked on me. You know what I mean? Like that really worked to keep me very like, oh my gosh, well, we shouldn't do, there's a whole lot of things that we should not do, or I shouldn't do, I'm not allowed to. So that introduced shame and fear and a lot of really challenging emotions into my life as a young person. So I'll just say, like, I had a really cool conversation very recently with one of my friends who didn't grow up Roman Catholic or Christian even. She grew up with a parent who actually was way more influenced by like Hinduism, and she grew up with this idea in very general terms that like we ought to love one another. You ought to love yourself. You ought to give and pour love into yourself. You ought to give and pour love into someone else. I'm you and you're me, so like, don't you want to feel good with me because I want to feel good with you? And she was like, I can't imagine growing up with that much fear in my life. And I was like, I can't imagine growing up with that much love in my life. Like, how different would I have,
That's true. Both sides of the coin can be very overwhelming depending on what your experience is, you know.
Also, starting off this conversation about like me working in middle schools, I would say one of the reasons why I ended up gravitating towards work like this is because there were a lot of instances when I was growing up that I felt very isolated and very alone and like misunderstood, but not in like a cool artistic way. Like, I wasn't like a brooding artist. I was like, man, like I'm fucking sad. Like life is hard and this is scary and things are not good. Like if I don't work very hard, I'm gonna burn in hell. Like I'm afraid. So just like so much pressure and anxiety, and I think the things that became really helpful for me the older I got were people being like, no, your feelings make sense. It's okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's legit. Keep it. Yeah, that's great. Like really working on being able to feel my feelings and like have them and like have space for them, because whether my parental figures meant to do this or not, I often felt like I didn't have the space to like have my feelings or be like, yeah, I'm afraid or I'm anxious or I can't do this or I don't, just the hard feelings that everybody goes through. I just like wasn't given the tools to work with them, or I missed it if they were given to me. I totally missed getting
Catholic parents aren't known to be the most empathetic people.
Yeah. So.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors. Evolved Goods was founded on the ethos that this podcast was started on: pursuing personal growth with a positive mindset. Our clothing are a reflection of that. Our first line, the Standard, which launched earlier this year, is now available on our website, evolvedgoods.co. And we will be launching our second line this summer called Soak It Up. So follow us on Instagram at evolvedgoods.co and check out our website for more clothing drops coming soon. This podcast is also sponsored by True Nutrition. Use Evolved Podcast to get 5% off all True Nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I recommend the cookies and cream flavor in heavy strength, and I add it to waffles, oatmeal, and protein shakes. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because their supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit truenutrition.com to supplement your workouts and nutrition. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 10% off all weight train and athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. They have great clothes for the gym wear, for men and women. Visit weighttrain.com for all your gym gear needs. Last is not dead yet. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 15% off all clothing and accessories. The goat shorts and shirts are some of the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops you're stoked on. Visit notdeadyet.com for clothing to remind the world you are not dead yet. Now, back to the show. I know you also do a bit of running as well and biking, and you've done some triathlons.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that. When did you start doing those types of sports?
I started swimming when I was like a wee baby, and I think that was like my mom and my dad actually were like, this is a survival thing. This is just a safety
Something
thing.
You need to know.
Yeah, you need to know how to swim. So I started swimming when I was really young. I actually did not learn how to ride a bike until I was like maybe in middle school. Like I think I learned when I was little, and then I just didn't have a bike, and so I didn't practice it. And then I actually started running in middle school. There was a group of girls that wanted to like go on runs after school when we were in middle school for like kind of the wrong reasons, but
to hang out with boys.
No, actually, because it was an all-girls Catholic school, there were no boys. It was because we wanted for our bodies to look good, and so we were like, well, we know exercise will do that, so we should start running. But we were like pre-pubescent girls, like we didn't need to go on jogs for our health at that time, you know. Yeah, running and swimming started kind of early, or swimming very early, and then swimming and biking in like middle school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, I know you've done a bunch of races since then. What was your most recent race?
The most recent race, I think technically speaking, might have been the Richmond Ragnar.
Yeah. A couple months ago, right?
Yeah, the very end of April. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I didn't have anything in May, so I think technically that was the most recent race.
Cool. And how was that?
It was awful.
Really?
This year was awful.
Why?
Because it started raining. So you've done Richmond Ragnar.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can get there on a Thursday night. The races typically kick off on a Friday, depending on how fast or slow your race is. You start in the morning or in the evening, and then it ends on Saturday, right? We got there Thursday evening. It started raining on Thursday evening, and it did not stop raining until like Saturday morning, maybe Friday late. So it was just wet, like it was just muddy. The campsite was flooded. As you know, the same courses are run on the
campsites.
Yeah. So the trails got chewed up. So it just didn't matter how fast you were, you're still running through like, you know,
a lot of mud.
So much mud. It was, and I think everybody was really stressed. Like that wasn't very pleasant. You know? So yeah, I was a team captain this year, and I think all of the things combined just made it feel really stressful. And I did not do my nutrition very well, so by like my second and third run, I was like, oh, I don't feel great. This is not good. But I'm glad it happened. Like I almost always feel that way after a race like that. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I definitely am looking to do it in 2024, and I'm thinking about getting a team together.
Hell yeah.
So if you don't have a team, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay.
But I know you also have done other longer races, especially triathlon.
Yeah.
You've done the half Ironman twice?
Just once.
Just once?
Yeah.
Okay, but are you training to do it again?
I really want to. I'm like excited to talk about this because there's one coming up in October, and we're in June right now, so that's actually like about 20 weeks out from when it would be. And I did a 20-week training program for the last one that I did, and that was perfect. It was like got me in really, really good shape for it. So I really think I do want to do that. I think I need someone to do it with me. There's like a couple friends that I've already pinged to be like, hey, you've done one of these before, you've expressed interest in doing it. So I find that when I have someone training with me, even if we're not physically literally doing the training together, but like I know that you're doing the training.
You're holding each other accountable.
Exactly, yeah. That makes me feel like more excited, and also like it's like a comfort, it's like a safety blanket. A person, someone else is doing this with me.
Plus it just makes it more fun.
Yeah.
You know, training by yourself frankly sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, at least when I run, I can take my dog with me, and that makes it a little bit more fun. You know, and I couldn't do the Ragnar this year because I was training for my first triathlon, which was a half sprint. Okay. So in terms of like what you've done, it was very short. But it was still a good experience. I didn't do any swim prep at all. So I was pretty tired like through the swim. Like I was doing like alternating between like freestyle and like backstroke just to get through it. And I was one of the last few people to finish the swim. Okay. But I did it. Yeah. And then, it just got progressively easier for me after that because I could then go into the bike. And then the run after that, I've been running for a long time now. So the run was super easy. Awesome. It was a nice way to chill after the bike ride and the swim.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I definitely want to do longer ones, and I've been looking at others in October. And I think there's one next month that I was considering signing up for too.
Hell yeah.
The Live Red Foundation is the one that sponsored the half sprint. Yeah. It's for the East Coast Triathlon Festival. Cool. And they've got a few other events. One is the Robius Landing Triathlon. That's the one in October. And then the other one is a Hilbert off-road triathlon. So I have a gravel bike with like mountain bike tires on it. Yeah. And I love riding on the trails. Yeah. So, and I love trail running. So I think that could be super fun.
That's really cool. Will you send that one to me? Because I haven't done an off-road triathlon. I've only ever done like, I guess regular ones. Yeah. So that'd be really cool.
I just got to get the funds together for that. Yeah. But that should be fun. So when was the first half Ironman that you did?
The first one that I did took place about a year ago. It was like, oh my gosh, was it May or was it June? It was at the very beginning of one of these months, and I'm pretty shocked I can't remember. I think it was like June 4th, 2022. Mm-hmm. It was in Roanoke, so it was the Blue Ridge, I think it was called like the Blue Ridge 70.3. So the swim was in this like amazing reservoir. Like it was beautiful. Just like take all the other stuff away, like all the adrenaline from being there, and like you've prepped for like 4 or 5 months for this. It was actually just like objectively beautiful swim site. And then the bike was literally up a mountain, because if you're not familiar with Roanoke, Virginia,
pretty hilly.
It's pretty hilly. It's pretty mountainous. I didn't know this until before the race was about to take place, like maybe a month before. I learned that the way that the Ironman like Foundation classifies their courses are for bikes specifically is like flat, rolling, and hilly. There's only 3 categories. There's not like category 5, category this, like it's just 3. And this one was categorized as hilly, and hilly is the most extreme that it can be, period. Like that's the hardest.
No matter how big the elevation is, right?
Yeah. So
hilly is definitely underselling it a
100%. That's a very gentle word for what this was. Like we literally went up a mountain, and if you know, I'm not from Roanoke. I'm not familiar with it. There's a place on this side, on this ascent of a mountain, and it's called the Claw. Like it's known as the Claw, and it's like 5 or 7 turns.
Like switchbacks?
Yeah, up like a certain distance, whatever, all of that. And I was losing my like hair. I was stressing out about it so much before the race, because biking is my weakest discipline. Like I learned how to ride a bike in middle school, but I don't casually ride my bike around. Like I did a lot more when I was training last year, which is like how I got to know you and a bunch of other bike people. But that's my weakest discipline. It's the one that I'm the least comfortable with and the least experienced with. So I just like blasted a mountain for that. And then
awesome.
I was like, okay, great. And then of course you go up the mountain, and that means you come down the mountain. So you go really fast.
Yeah, the descent's always much better.
Yes, that was really scary though too. I saw some really scary wipeouts, and I was like, whoa, okay. And that's another like scared of that. I don't want to do that.
I've fallen off my bike a bunch, and my wife hates it. But if you're gonna ride your bike and go fast, like it's gonna happen from time to time, especially if you're riding on trails or even on road from time to time if you're not too careful. It was a closed course though, right?
Yes.
That's good.
That
we
was
didn't
awesome.
have to worry about traffic at all.
No. Yeah, that definitely had a lot of peace of mind for that, because I think there were like maybe a few pieces that were like long flat stretches where there were plenty of lanes, so they did some traffic redirecting, but everything else was closed, and that was good. So I was like,
do you have aspirations to do a full Ironman?
So I thought that I did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was like, I'm going to do a half one, and then I'm definitely going to want to do a full one. I finished the half, and I was like, I have no interest in doing a full one. I would love to do another half, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but I don't really want to do a full one again. I think I'd like to do a half one.
What do you like about the half distance?
I think I like that it's like each one of these tasks, like before you are 3 tasks, like I like that each one of those is badass. Like if you go swim 1.2 miles, that's really impressive. Like what the fuck? Why? Why are you doing that? If you go bike 56 miles, that's like nothing to sniff at. Yeah, that's a good ride, right? You go run 13.1 miles, that's huge. That's big. So I think I really love that. Yeah. I love that each one of those is like super badass, and putting it all together is like, look at what I can do. Look at what all these people can do. Like look at what the human body is capable of. Look at what look at this, like wow, you know. And you mentioned before like running and training by yourself is like not super fun, and I definitely agree, because the social aspect of training is awesome. Like that's chef's kiss. I love that. Like we get to, you know, do this fun shit together. And I love running by myself or biking by myself or swimming. I mean, you can swim with other people, but your face is in water, so it's not like you're chatting.
A little bit harder to be social in the water when you're trying to not drown.
Yeah, exactly. So I think an aspect of the half that I liked so much is that it's hours of moving meditation. Like you're surrounded by people, you're surrounded by this, you know, beautiful environment probably, but the whole time you're like, okay, how do I feel? I'm checking in with myself. What do I need? Am I good? Okay, I'm starting to panic. What do I need to calm myself down? Okay, I'm starting to feel loopy. What do I need? Like the whole time you're just with yourself, and I liked that. I really like being able to do that through the movement, all 3 different tasks.
Yeah, that makes me think of like why I fell in love with running, and even though it's sort of a love-hate relationship, but it did sort of like get me out of my head. Like it's a time to be introspective, but also a time to get out of your head at certain points too, and get, like just be in your body and, you know, sort of go through the motions, especially like going on longer runs. When you do sort of have to like drown everything out, and just, you know, focus on the distance that you're trying to accomplish. Or just going with the flow of it and like see where it takes you. The first time I ran a half marathon, I did it on a training run just because I was out having such a good time. I just kept going.
That's so cool. That's awesome. How did you feel?
I felt pretty good. Yeah, it was hot that day, but yeah, and it was definitely unexpected. Like I wasn't planning on that to happen.
Congratulations, surprise.
Yeah. That's and I sure was tired afterwards. But yeah, I mean it's great for pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, and I think it gave me a fresh perspective on, you know, what I'm capable of, and you know, how I can make other changes in my life. Like before I went vegan, before I quit drinking, like the first big change that I made in my life was I started running.
Wow, I love that. That's really cool.
I think that practice like helped me grow in so many ways. You know, it was the first step in prioritizing a more active lifestyle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm sure swimming, you know, did that for you to some degree as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think the weird middle school running did that.
Yeah.
After I kind of got over the like, okay, I'm 13, I don't need to be doing this. But returning to running for sure, like in college, I would say, maybe high school, but like mostly college. Yeah, this feels good in a way that is different from like, okay, eating a cheeseburger feels good. And I'm not knocking cheeseburgers, like have the burger, but like this is a different kind of like sensory input, you know, and it feels really good. And then the effects are really cool to like continue to feel afterwards.
So we're moving towards wrapping up. I'm just curious to know, like, what's your morning routine like, typically, if you have one?
My morning routine's hilarious. I don't really have one. I did for a while. I tried to maintain one and it didn't last. So what my morning routine is now that works for me is my alarm goes off at I'll give you like specifics. Like I need to be at my school site between 7:45 and 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me about 25 minutes to get there. So my alarm goes off around 6:30, and I may open my eyes at 6:30. I may open them at 6:45, which is when my second alarm is set.
Yeah, it's always good to have a backup.
Just to
I
back
do the
up.
same thing.
You never know. And then I actually immediately get on my phone. And the reason why I have allowed that to continue, despite all of the like, don't get dark, like put your phone in the other room or whatever, is laying prone in bed and like checking on like one of my hobbies is like trading clothes. We could talk about that later if you want, because it sounds weird to say, but like I'll like sell clothes online or like swap clothing items with people, and there's some slow
Do you have an
fashion.
app that you like to use for that?
Yeah, I'll use like Poshmark or Instagram or another one called Lucky Sweater, which is awesome.
Cool.
So what I mean by all of this is I think definitely like the actual blue light helps me wake up, but being able to just be in bed and not immediately get out of the bed is really helpful for me. I think I need that kind of transition time. And if I were to read, I would fall right back asleep.
Yeah.
If I were to, so maybe I'll substitute the phone out for something else. But right now my morning routine is giving myself some time to actually wake up. Like I need that. I cannot just pop out of bed and then.
Plus, I'm sure like with your job, you're doing stuff all day. You don't really have a lot of time to like look at your phone. So it's nice to like, just take some pleasure time for yourself.
Exactly.
So, you can be more focused and present with, with the kids and, what you have to do with your job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so, for real. I think one of my things recently has been like giving myself stuff. It sounds silly, but like if I want the time to wake up in the morning, I'm going to try to take that for myself so that I can have it, so that when I do go into my job or if I have a meeting that's coming up, I am not depleted already. So finding the balance there too.
Yeah. Do you feel like your like running practice and like your triathlon, the triathlons that you do out of work, how do those like serve you in like the fulfillment of your passion and like the work that you do?
One aspect of like how those serve my work, I guess, or like the passion aspect of it, is when I set my mind to something and then train for it, and then I have the ability to be successful, it helps for me to be like, in like really general terms, it helps for me to be like, okay, kids, like you can do this too. I'm not saying to a 13-year-old you can go do an Ironman, but I am saying like if you find something that feels really good for you and you like it and it like sets you on fire, you get excited about it, something that makes your voice sound like this when you talk about it, that can be a good thing. Like this is a good thing for you to maybe focus on or try or whatever. So something along those lines as I'm like saying this out loud. And then I think the other aspect of it that's a little bit more personal is just that I have learned that I can do these things. So it's like a confidence booster. It's definitely a self-awareness practice. It's not necessarily meditation. I'm sitting on the cushion. I know myself, but it's self-awareness in the sense that like, okay, I'm really tired today. I can't go run 7 miles. I need to be okay with taking a rest day, or I do want to work towards this goal. I do want to accomplish this thing, and success is going to look different every single day. So how can I be kind to myself? How can I be gentle to myself? And how can I push myself? Like if I know I can push myself, then let me do that.
Yeah.
So getting to know myself, I feel like that is really, really helpful for me. And then hopefully that spills over into how I interact with young people, just to be like, I'm 30 and I'm still figuring it out, you guys. Like I just realized 2 weeks ago that this thing actually works better for me than that thing. Like you're always allowed to change. You're always allowed to learn. Try something new. Stop doing the things that don't feel good. Like there's a lot there, I feel like. Keeps me sane also. Yeah,
that helps. I struggle sometimes with like overdoing it. My wife will be the first one to say that I tend to over exercise sometimes just because I want to like do a bunch of stuff. I enjoy riding my bike and going to the gym, and running with Daphne. So like sometimes I'll go for a run and then go to the gym afterwards, or like, go take her out for a walk and then go for a bike ride afterwards. How do you and your partner like navigate that, like in terms of like what you're doing with your training and how you're pushing yourself? How does that work for you guys?
That's a good question. I know that for training last spring, something that I happened a lot actually was I would wake up at like 4 a.m. because I was hungry. Like I would have eaten a full meal after like a really big training night, but my body would just like metabolize it so fast that I would wake up like stomach grumbling. So then that affected my sleep, and then that affects, when you don't get great sleep, it affects your whole day. Like everything can be, shaky after that. So Isaac was really good at being like super patient and really gracious. And honestly, he stepped up a lot in terms of, like, he already does really amazing stuff around the house in terms of like the balance that we have with like domestic chores or taking care of our home. But I would message him and be like, hey, my meeting ran late. I really need to get this run or this swim in, or like I feel up for this run or this swim and I'm going to go do it. But that means I'm not going to be home till like 8. And he'd be like, okay, I got you. I'm going to make dinner tonight. Like you get us tomorrow, but like I got us tonight. No problem. Like enjoy your run. I'll see you soon. So he was like flexible, graceful, adaptable. And then when I shared with him the idea that I might want to do it again, that was like 4 months, right? So then when I shared the idea with him about, I might want to do one of these again, he was like, okay, let's do it. Like the verbiage was, okay, we will do it. That sounds good. I support you.
It's a teamwork.
We will go through it again together. And I was like, okay, well, thanks.
That's cool.
Yeah, so definitely just some like a lot of communication and a lot of him being like, all right, just go get it, have a good run,
Yeah, it is great having that support. Suze was there for my first triathlon and cheering me on and taking pics and videos, so I appreciated that as well.
Yeah.
What would you say is like a quote or tip that you use to help you stay positive in times of personal hardship? Like anything that. Really that just resonates with you.
Yeah, I guess one thing that like has helped me, even if it's not like a little like a soundbite or like a clip, is that, and this might sound kind of weird, but like it's okay if you're not positive right now. Like this is okay.
Yeah.
This too. I don't know how well that translates, but like it has been very, very helpful for me to give myself the space not to be positive and okay. Just the buffer of being like, this sucks, or like, I'm not good right now, and that's okay. And then I can move on to like, okay, what do I need to do to get okay? Like, do I need a milkshake right now? Do I need to dance? Do I need this? Do I need to call a friend? Like, but I need to give myself the permission not to be okay first.
Right.
So I think
it comes back to the sense of self-awareness and cultivating like what you actually need right now so that you can better serve yourself, in the long run.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Where can people connect with you if they want to follow along with you on your journey?
You can connect with me on Instagram. My handle is @TaylorBrono, like bro, like a bro that chills. My last name's Bono, but throw an R in there. Give me a
Is that
follow.
the explanation for it?
Yeah.
Like a bro that chills?
Yeah, because in high school, all the bros at my school tried to find all the different places you could put bro. So like I was in oceanography and they were like, it's broceanography, like Barack Obama, like all the bros. So I was like, I'm gonna be chill like a bro. Like my Instagram handle has been Taylor Brono since 2010.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks Taylor.
Thank you.
Great
very
talking
much,
to you.
Joe. Yeah, it's great.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. Follow @evolvedpodcast.co on Instagram for weekly updates. Subscribe to Evolved Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and like your favorite episodes. Production and editing by Joe Fitzpatrick. Our theme music, Endless Cruise, is written and performed by Fingers, spelled F1NG3RS.